What's up, YouTube? I'm back with a PSA for you guys, and that is do not let them control the colorism narrative. All right, and by them, I mean colorist people. Okay, and I'll be up for it and I'll keep it real. Like, I'm still kind of getting the hang of this too, so I'm not trying to come off preachy and acting, so holier than thou. But still, this is a message that needs to get out to the general people who, have concerns about colorism, who, you know, experience colorism or have experienced colorism, who want to fight against colorism, in one way or another. Okay? So, there you go. But I noticed, in these colorism discussions, usually, not all the time, but usually, it tends to be brown-skinned and dark-skinned men and light-skinned biracial mixed women trying to control the dynamic, the direction, and the tone of the colorism conversation. You notice that. Notice that, right? And, they're so used to controlling the dynamics, the direction, and the tone of so much in the community that they think they can do this any and everywhere, even in colorism conversations. All right, it's kind of similar to how white people come into like pro-black spaces and try to control and derail the conversation. Notice that. Notice that there's a lot of similarities between the way that white people act and colorist people act. Their gaslighting tactics are very similar, practically the same, really. Their behavior is very similar. Coming into people's spaces, trying to take over, derail conversations, control the narrative. Their excuses are the same, right? Their shaming tactics are the same as well. It's kind of almost a little creepy. It's like, man, how did that happen? All right. Next, colorism is not fair and balanced. So, therefore, why should addressing and solving it be fair and balanced? I mean, let's be real. Colorism does not affect every single person or every single group in this community equally. It affects us in different ways, right? And people want to have this like try to equalize colorism for some reason, as if it affects us all exactly the same. And some people will use their personal experiences and try to use their personal experiences to overshadow the experience of a collective, right? For example, like some light-skinned women will be like, oh, I got bullied for being light-skinned. And then, her individual experience, which, I'm not saying that, that is invalid. I'm not saying that, that's not worth a discussion. But what I'm saying is, sometimes they tend to use that personal experience and, being bullied as if it's like the collective experience of light-skinned women, biracial mixed women in the black community, which it tends to not be. That's arguable, but if there tends to be, if that was the case, then if that was the case and it was across the board, right, and that was the experience as a collective, right, then light-skinned, mixed, and biracial women would have spoken out way before now, right? Way before now. They would not have to be prompted to speak out about this. And they're usually prompted to speak out about this when dark-skinned, brown-skinned women speak out about this. And usually they're speaking out about this in order to silence them. It's a silencing tactic, right? Because they're saying like, oh, now we're like in the struggle Olympics now, right? Like my struggle is more than your struggle, right? Or either, oh, they're both equal. So, we all go through it. Let's just, get over it and move on, right? Versus, having a genuine, real discussion, conversation, and trying to sort of find some sort of a solution to the issue, or having some sort of a resolution to the issue. As well, do these same people who do that, do they take this same approach when it comes to racism, right? And by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I meant to mention this, but I'll mention this now. When I made videos about racism, right? Racism, I noticed that I had white trolls, right? When I make videos about colorism, I noticed that those white trolls are absent, right? They don't really give a fuck about colorism, right? They give a fuck about racism, right? Because that's kind of like me calling them out, right? With the colorism, they don't really give a damn about controlling that narrative, right? Because it's just like, whatever, and that shit don't affect me in one way or the other. So notice these people are trying to control the narrative because they do feel that it affects them one way or the other. So they're trying to make sure that they have control of this narrative here. That's why I'm coming through with this PSA, right? Do not let them take control of the narrative. Okay, next. People calling, people names, insults, pejoratives, slurs, all that good stuff. Regardless if those names and slurs are true or not, right? Because sometimes, folks will be like, oh, you a single mama. When it comes to the women, especially the brown skin, dark skin women, like, oh, you fat, you overweight, you a single mama, you can't get a man, all this stuff, right? And they say that as a way of like a shaming tactic, and also sort of to invalidate what you're saying, right? What you're speaking on. Because, oh, you're just speaking on this because you can't get a man, right? Even though colorism is more than just relationships, that's the thing. People tend to be very simplistic at times when they think of colorism, where it's just like, oh, she's complaining because she can't get a man, But it's much more than that, right? As the light-skinned women have spoken about, saying that they were bullied by the dark-skinned women, right? It's much more than just the relationship aspect of it, And then some light-skinned biracial mixed women gonna come through in the comment section, I know, and they're gonna be all like, oh no, they're bullying her and us because the dark skinned, brown skinned men like us so much. And that is an aspect, of course that is an aspect, but also you be the main ones saying like, oh, they hating on me because I'm light skinned. And like, to keep it real, from a light-skinned person to another light-skinned person, no one is hating on you because you're light-skinned, all right? Not just because you're light-skinned, okay? And by the way, I'm just going to put it out there, and I know y'all going to be in y'all feelings about this, but honestly, and this goes for the light-skinned men and the light-skinned women, and just like the light-skinned folks in general. I'm just going to put it out there for y'all, all right? If a brown skin or dark skinned person says that they do not like you purely because you are light skinned and nothing else, I hate to say it, but that shit is valid. Especially if it's coming from a brown skinned, dark skinned woman to a light skinned, mixed biracial woman, that shit is valid. Alright? But the thing is, I really don't think that's what's at play here. But of course, leave it to the light skinned chicks to, be on this, they hate me because I'm light skinned. They hate me because I got, quote unquote, good hair. They hate me because I got light eyes. Just really living up to that, like, vain, self-absorbed stereotype that's applied to dark skin, oh, applied to light skinned people, especially the women. You know, just an FYI. Some people have came at me with that. It's like I don't want a half breed speaking out on my issues. And I'm like, okay, all right then, keep it moving. I'm not really losing any sleep over it. I understand. That's the way they feel. That's the way they feel. And to be honest, they have a right to feel that way. Honestly, you know. Now watch all the people. Watch a whole bunch of people in the comments section getting triggered, right? Typing all types of comments. You motherfucker. Sellout ass Negro. Selling us out. Defend us, motherfucker. But yeah. So next. Oh yeah, then I may have forgot to mention, but all that stuff, those names and insults, it doesn't invalidate your argument, whether they're true or not. It's your argument is still valid, right? But people do try to use that to undermine your argument, though, for some reason, right? That leads me to the next part of this. Notice that they go to personal attacks, right? Notice that. When they can attack your argument, which often derails the conversation, right? So since they can't really attack your argument, right? Because your argument is too sound to attack, like it's just too strong and airtight and sturdy. So they can't really attack that. So they'll attack you instead. Thus, kind of low key taking switching up the focus, right? So now the focus goes to you because you're being attacked, right? So you're being attacked, so you feel like you need to defend yourself from the attack. Of course, we all do, sometimes, I honestly don't even entertain a lot of this bullshit when it comes to attacks, because oftentimes when people come at me, they tend to not really attack my talking points. And if they do, the attacks on my talking points aren't really that strong, honestly. I don't think, for the most part, much of anyone's been giving me a run for my money and the shit that I've been saying. Perhaps back in the, in the beginning of my colorism journey, perhaps. But at this point, not so much, And then, they'll have some people coming through and just saying, hey, this don't really apply to me, And not even, to be fair, not even on some attitudinal shit. It's just like, hey, I don't act like this, and I'm brown skin, dark skin. Like, okay, that's cool, I did specify colorist, by the way. I did say colorist, brown skin and dark skinned men, not just brown skin and dark skinned men. So perhaps you're just not a colorist. All right. But yeah, they'll use personal attacks to derail the conversation and change up the focus. Beware of that, because then it switches up to you having to defend yourself versus defend your argument, right? And honestly, once you switch to personal attacks anyway, you've kind of lost the argument in my book anyway. Because if my argument was just so terrible, then you could just destroy my argument versus trying to attack and destroy me. Next, don't feed the trolls. I see y'all in the comment section sometimes, and I gotta really kind of jump in there a little bit sometimes too, and I've been trying to do that a little bit more, just starting to just block some of these people. Some people are kind of like trolls, but like they are actually people behind the keyboard where they actually do have a profile on YouTube and actually have even posted videos on YouTube. So I kind of don't like, they're trolls, but they're not trolls. Kind of like they're trolling, right? But I'll say that they're trolling versus people who are straight up trolls who have no information on the profile, talking a whole bunch of shit, making a whole bunch of personal attacks, trying to go in on people's looks, and you ain't got a photo to show how the fuck you look, right? And it's just like, what the fuck? Yeah. Don't get bogged down in that BS. And I understand, like, if they actually making a valid argument and you feel like you want to debate a valid argument, I can understand that. Because that's sometimes, we kind of can use a little debate, but sometimes it just gets to a point where it's just like, this is too much, This is just purely some troll shit, all right? So, don't feed the trolls, all right? All right, next. And this is the last one I got. This is the "but you do it too" argument, right? And this argument usually comes up when people, again, they're trying to do that whole equalization thing, right? Oh, you do it too, basically, right? Notice that the argument is never, or is hardly ever, oh, no, I don't do that, right? The argument is, you do it too. Thus, them indirectly admitting that, yeah, I do it, but you do it too, right? So they're admitting to what you're saying, but they're admitting to it in a roundabout way, though, right? So that's all I pretty much have for this video. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, adios and goodbye for now. Well, before I go, I'll give some closing words. It does seem a bit abrupt, but, I'll say that I can understand, definitely. Sometimes it is hard to keep control of the narrative, right? Especially when you do want to have, an honest conversation and do want to consider people's sides and people's experiences and people's opinions and things like that, right? I understand that. And I do promote that on my channel. I don't automatically, block and delete people and comments just because I don't agree with what they're saying, right? There's some people who have consistently posted on my videos who have not agreed with what I'm saying. And I've allowed them to do it, so long as they have, they do it respectfully, right? And for the most part, they have. But ultimately, we do have to be careful about who and what we entertain, right? Because one moment we're talking about one thing, right? We're talking about colorism. Then the next moment, the conversation gets derailed and we're talking about a whole nother subject about that doesn't have anything to do with colorism and finding a solution or anything. It's just some bullshit. And it's just like, we can't go through that. We can't be going through that every single time we having a colorism conversation here. All right. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.